All right, now starting from our documentation, I'm going to go to the native menu. Here you can find all the plugins. There are currently more than 70 plugins for accessing native functionality. Now let's take a look at this plugin here, AppVersion. We use this plugin to get the name and version of our application. Now with all plugins, first we need to execute a command like this: Ionic, plugin, add, and then the name of the plugin. Now if you want to remove a plugin, replace add with remove. Now below that you see a link to a GitHub repository. Whenever you want to use a plugin, be sure to thoroughly read that GitHub page. Because when you work with more complex plugins, sometimes things don't work the way you expect, and you get various errors along the way. So you really need to look at the documentation to make sure you're not missing something. Now below that, we've got supported platforms. And you can see this plugin is implemented for Android and iOS. Again, you really need to look at this and should not assume that a plugin you're going to use is available everywhere. Now below that, you can see the usage. So we import this AppVersion from Ionic-native. Pretty much all Ionic plugins are defined in this module, Ionic-native. In the last section, where we were working with components, the module we used was Ionic-Angular. Now we use Ionic-native. And then you can see this class has a bunch of static methods like getAppName, getPackageName, getVersionCode, and getVersionNumber. And as I explained earlier in this section, we should call these methods when the platform is ready. Now let's switch over to code and do some experimentation. So I'm going to go to home.ts. First, I'm going to import AppVersion from Ionic-native. Now note that I did not execute this command in terminal, and this was deliberate because I want to show you what happens when you forget to install a plugin. So I simply import this class here. Now I'm going to import the platform service from Ionic-Angular, so platform. Next, we inject it here in the constructor. And then call platform.ready. Then in this arrow function, I want to display application version. So version is AppVersion.getVersionNumber. Let's go back to the browser and see what happens. All right, let's open up the console. Okay, we got a warning. Tried calling AppVersion.getVersionNumber, but Cordova is not available. And I hope you expected this, right? Because I told you Cordova plugins are not available in browser. So I'm going to run this in an iOS simulator. Ionic run iOS-LC. All right, here's our simulator. Now let's go back to the terminal. Okay, we got a warning. Tried calling AppVersion.getVersionNumber, but the AppVersion plugin is not installed. Install the AppVersion plugin. So what is beautiful about Ionic is that when you forget to install a plugin and try to use it, it tells you what plugin you need to install. And you can see the actual command you need to execute. So Ionic plugin add Cordova plugin app version. Now when we run this command, Ionic fetches the plugin via npm and adds it to our plugins folder. So this is our AppVersion plugin. However, if you look at config.xml, there is no reference to this plugin, which means next time a developer in the team checks out this project from the repository, they're not going to have this plugin. And because it's not referenced here, when they run the application in iOS or Android, the plugin is not going to be installed automatically. And then at runtime, they will get a weird error telling them that the plugin is missing. So the proper way to install a plugin is to add --save to this command. And unfortunately, this is not highlighted in Ionic documentation. So when you look at the plugin page, you only see Ionic plugin add. There is no mention of --save flag. Now, when we add the save flag, we get this message here, saved plugin info to config.xml. And now you can see the last entry in our config.xml is a reference to this plugin. So next time a developer checks out the code and runs Ionic run iOS, the plugin will be installed automatically. All right, back here, our application is launched. Now, if you look at the terminal, we see a couple of error messages. I think there is something wrong with Ionic CLI, and these error messages are about WebSocket. So error opening WS, which is WebSocket message. Don't worry about this, there is nothing wrong here, but we could not read the actual version number. Why is that? If you look at the documentation for this plugin, you can see that this method returns a promise. This is really, really important, so you always have to look at the documentation. The first time I used this method, that's how I used it. I thought it's a synchronous method that returns the version number. But this returns a promise, so the proper way to use this method is to call AppVersion.getVersion number, then v goes to, let's log it in the console. Like that. Now save. Okay, Webpack rebuilt our project. Now look at this message. Version is 0.0.1. So we could read the version successfully. And where does this version come from? If you go to config.xml, on the top widget element, you can see here's the version of our application. So I can change this to, let's say, version 1.0. If I save this, Ionic CLI is not going to be notified because it's only watching TypeScript, HTML, and SCSS files. So we need to stop this process and run it again. Okay, now you can see the version is 1.0. Next, I'm going to show you how to work with contacts in a mobile device.